Today is lesson 10.2. It's called Measure of Variability. And that means that we're just going to use our data set a little more and dive deeper into it a little bit more to look at the different types of data we have. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to talk about what mean, median, and mode means. We talked about this a few days ago in your lesson. And you should have, I think I made a chart, and you could write in your chart what each of these meant. So mean means the average of something. It means that you look at your set of data, you add them all together, you divide by how many pieces of data there is, and that will give you the average of your whole set of data. Median means the middle number. We'll be using the median a lot today. And mode means the one that occurs the most often. Of course, when you have a set of data, it means you have to put it in order to find these three things. That is what we're going to have to be doing again today. So order is very, very, very important. All right, so the first vocab I want to talk about is range, and I talked about this just shortly in my video yesterday, but I just want to hit on it again because we're going to be talking about range a lot. So range is the difference between the greatest value and the lowest value in the set of data. So finding the top and the bottom and subtracting, and that would be the range. So I have a set of data right here. Here's my high number, here's my low number. Finding the range would be 40 minus 12 and 28. 28 would be the range of this data. All the way goes from 12 to 40. There are 28 points between 12 and 40, and that's what the range is. So range, very simple, taking the highest minus the lowest. A few other vocabulary words I have for you. Yikes, that doesn't look very good. A purple does not look very good, but it's okay. Quartiles is the next vocabulary word. And we're going to be dealing a lot with quartiles today. So quartiles will take your set of data and divide it into four sections. So the first quartile, so the first one, and it's also known as the lower quartile, but I've noticed that this book always uses the term first quartile. This is the median of the lower half of the data. The third quartile, which in the past used to be talked about as the upper quartile. This is the median of the upper half of the data. Many times they will write it like Q1, meaning quartile 1, Q3, quartile 3. So first quartile is the median of the lower half, and third quartile is the median of the upper half of data. And we're going to practice this. So let's find the median, first, and third quartile. So the first thing you have to do, you have to put them in order. And I put them in order to save us a little bit of time today. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the median. So median means the middle number. And I can already tell that 34 is going to be my median. Okay. Now, I'm going to look at this side to figure out what my quartile 1 is. Now, the quartile 1 is the median of the lower half. I'm not going to include 34. So the median of my lower half, well, I can tell that it's going to fall between here. And to find the median of those two, I'm going to add them together, 31 plus 24, oops, and divide by 2. And so quartile 1 would be 27.5. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing over here. This is like my upper quartile or my third quartile. So I'm going to look at these two things because I don't have a true median, so I have to look at these things and add them together and divide by 2. So I know my quartile 3 is going to be 38.5. So I found my median, which I had to do first. And then after that, I go to find my quartiles. And to do that, I find the middle number of the upper half and middle number of the lower half. My next vocabulary word is called interquartile range, and it's the difference between the third and first quartiles. So interquartile range basically means after you find your quartiles, you find the difference. So if I go back here, oops, I'm sorry, if I go back here, and I look at my quartile 3 and I look at my quartile 1, the interquartile range is taking these two things and subtracting them. So 38.5 minus 27.5, 38.5 minus 27.5 is 11. My interquartile range, and a lot of times they'll say it like this, IR, interquartile range, is 11. So we just found a whole bunch of different things from this set of data. We found a median, we found quartile 1, we found quartile 3, and we found the interquartile range. Okay, we talked about this. All right, so this one says find the median, first and third quartiles, and the interquartile range of the data. So first thing I need to do is I need to find the median of it. So I have 25, 38, 39, 40, 44, 45, 49, 53. So I'm going to find the median first. So I can tell right away that I'm going to have to add these two together, and we're going to have to divide by 2. So I think it's going to be 44. Or 42, my bad. It's going to be 42. So my 42 is my median. Okay. Now, since I had to add these two together to find my median, I'm going to use this whole set of data to find my quartile 1. Even though I already used 40 in it, that's not my true median. So I'm going to use this whole 4 set of numbers to find my interquartile, or my quartile 1. So I'm going to use these two. Okay, so that's going to be 38.5. That's quartile 1. And then I'm going to use, let's see, this. And I believe this is going to be 47 for quartile 3. So now I'm just going to subtract the 2. 47 minus 38.5. And my interquartile range is 8.5. Sometimes when you have to find the measures of variability, they also ask you just to find the range for the set of data. So if you ever need the range for the set of data, remember, you just take the highest minus the lowest. So it would be 53 minus 25. Let's see, that's 8. 28 would be just the range. All right, so we're going to do a little bit more practice here. All right, the next thing, the last vocabulary word I have for you is the word outlier. An outlier is basically a set of data, a piece of data that's significantly farther away from the rest of the data points. And I didn't know until now that there's actually a mathematical formula you can use to figure out if there's any outliers. So I'm going to show you how to do that because I asked you to do that in your homework today, so I want to make sure that we're on the same page. So I have a step list or a checklist for you because that's honestly the easiest way to make sure you're doing it correctly. So the first thing you're going to have to do to find an outlier is you're going to have to find the interquartile range, meaning before this you have to find the median of the data, you have to find the quartile 1 and quartile 3. So you have to do a lot of things to be able to find the interquartile range. Second thing, what you're going to do is you're going to multiply the interquartile range by 1.5. Now, it's always 1.5. It doesn't ever change. Then you're going to subtract that answer from the first quartile, and you're going to add that number to the third quartile. And if anything goes above or below those, then you have an outlier. So here's an example. This is probably one of the hardest things to do today. That's why I made you a checklist. So if you need the checklist, number 1 is find the interquartile range. Number 2 is multiply that range by 1.5. Number 3 is take that number and subtract it from the lower and add it to the upper. And then you're going to have 2 different numbers. And if it's any piece of data is outside those, that's what you have an outlier. So here's an example. Okay. So the first thing I did, this is my set of data, is I found my median. Okay. Here it is. Then I found my quartile 1, then I found my quartile 3, and I found my range. So I took 35 minus 15, and I got 20. The next thing on my checklist says take that number and multiply it by 1.5. Okay, and I got 30. Then I'm going to take 30, and I'm going to subtract it from my quartile 1. I look here. I took 15 minus 30, I got negative 15, and then I took my quartile 2, which was 35, and I added 32, and I got 65. Now, if I have any numbers that are outside these pieces of data, then I have an outlier. Now, if I look at my set of data, I can tell right here I have a 70. 70 would be considered an outlier because it's above 65. And we're going to do another example of this together because I think this is probably kind of confusing. It just has a lot of steps to it. So, all right, here we go. Here's my set of data. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the median of it. So I don't even know how many pieces I have here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that means I'm going to have 2 that are together. Okay, so I already know by looking at it, since they're just the same, 14 plus 14 is going to be 28 divided by 2, so my median is 14. Then I'm going to use this whole thing to find the interquartile, the quartile 1. And the reason why I'm including 14 is because I had to use that to find the median. It's not the true individual median by itself. So, all right, so I already know, I can see that my middle number is 8, so that's going to be quartile 1. And my middle number over here is going to be 21, so that's going to be quartile 3. Okay, first thing I have to do is I have to find the interquartile range. Okay, so I'm going to take 21 minus 8. 21 minus 8 is 13. Okay, so 13. Then I'm going to take this number and I'm going to multiply it by 1.5. Remember, 1.5, it always stays the same. 13 times 1.5 is 19.5, 19 and a half. So then I'm going to take quartile 1, and I'm going to say 8 minus 19.5. What's that going to give me? That gives me negative 11 and a half. And I'm going to take quartile 3, and I'm going to add 19.5 to it. So I have 40.5. This means that I can't have any number go below 11 and a half, and I can't have any number go over 40 and a half. If I do, that means I have an outlier. I can already see my lowest number is 3, so I don't have to worry about the lowest. But I have a number over 40.5, and it's 62. So 62 would be considered my outlier. Now you might be like thinking in your head, like, I can tell 62 is going to be an outlier. Sometimes it might be close, but you might not be sure. It might not be. So you still have to run the numbers to figure out if you have an outlier or not. If you have any questions for me, let me know. We'll go over a little bit of more of this together in class tomorrow. So if you have questions on outliers, we can talk about that again. If you have questions on finding upper and lower quartiles, we can talk about that too. So I just appreciate you watching the whole way through, and we'll see you next class period.